So this is a temporary setup. I've just moved and I am trying to make sure you all receive your first video for the next period of time. So again, hello, my name is Katie Marie, and today's topic is suicide. This topic is part of the Safety First series, which lies right there within the relapse and recovery topic in Safety First. So, um, suicide is not just like a growing aspect in our society. Okay, so it actually always existed um, as it is today. Nothing's changed, y'all. It just is still happening. Suicide is not new news. Okay, it's only now becoming an open topic of discussion, and sadly, there are still many that will not talk about it. So, for example, assuming a person is suicidal, they themselves may never talk about it. Okay, then there are those who know or suspect that somebody is suicidal and either will not get them the help they need, nor will they attempt to talk to the person who is suicidal. This is a form of denial. So it is a way to push or suppress a concern to minimize its impact. We don't want to talk about it because then it'll be a big deal and we'll have to talk about it. Fact of the matter is, there's no way to minimize the impact of suicide. So, how do I know that I am or another person is suicidal? Well, the best way, I'm going to say it's not the only way, but the best way to know is to admit it for yourself or for the suicidal person to admit that for themselves. Okay. And so, what if the admission is not on the horizon? Like, I know such and such is never going to admit it, or you're saying to yourself, I'll never admit this. I'll never tell anybody this. Well, then there are signs to look for. This is how to detect suicide. Okay. There is what's called suicidal thoughts, suicidal tendencies, and suicidal actions. Okay. Then there is suicide prevention, which we'll talk a little bit on today, but I think there's such a broad topic of discussion. We can actually talk about this again somewhere in time. My sources are not from online articles or books or other publications. Over a period of 20 years or more, maybe 25 years, I've had the opportunity to study myself, my children, and others. Okay. So, suicide, by definition, is the very act of successfully, voluntarily intending to take one's own life. In other words, suicide is death caused by injuring oneself with the intent to die. That's what suicide is. When you have somebody who cuts themselves or likes to hurt themselves because they get a thrill out of it, there's a feeling that they're getting from that. They're getting some type of satisfaction from it. That's their dopamine. That's their way of coping. That's not suicide. That's not suicidal tendencies. That's not suicidal actions. So, suicidal thoughts are just ideas that have yet to manifest into an action. Okay. As with all thoughts, it's just a thought. A thought cannot hurt you. Talking about a thought or speaking a thought will not make an action. So, at the onset of a thought is the best time to call the crisis hotline or call a safe person or talk to somebody next to you. And also, don't hesitate to call 911 if you must, whether it's for yourself or another person. So, at the onset, talk about it. Suicidal tendencies. Okay, we already talked about suicidal thoughts. This is suicidal tendencies. Suicidal tendencies are when you have a thought and you try subtly different intentions. For example, you may have a thought to cut your arm with a knife, and so you'll go to the knife drawer and open the drawer and take out the knife to look at it from all different angles, visualizing just how that knife would affect your arm. if you cut your arm with it. It's a visualization. You're just looking at it, you're like thinking about it. Okay. Another such example of a suicidal tendency would be a thought of, say, throwing yourself into traffic. Okay. So you about walk about your front door. So you're walking and you go to your front door, you open up the door of your house, walk out the door, proceed toward the street, busy or not, it doesn't matter. You proceed to a street where you know cars are going up and down it. You look up, you look down the street, look both ways, and across this same busy street, you picture yourself walking out into the street in front of the next car that's zooming down the street. So you picture yourself walking out into the street. With both of these tendencies, you don't actually cut your arm and you don't actually walk in front of a car. They are just ideations or ideas of suicide. Suicide ideations is ideas of suicide. You have a thought, then you have an idea, and you try to picture the idea, and you'll go so far as to go to the drawer, open it up, pull out the knife, look at it, maybe even touch it to your arm. You're looking, you're thinking about it. Okay, these are suicidal ideations. I don't know if you had this broken down to you before. I've never had it broken down to me before, but I have broken it down to myself because I have lived with it for so many years since I was a teenager. So, between all the help I've been getting for the past 30 years, or a little less, maybe 25 years, I have come to learn and to know suicide. A suicidal action is the very act. It's an action. You're doing it. It's a very act of committed act. It's okay. So a suicidal action is the very act committed to cause death. So this is not an ideation, it is an action, which its sole intention is to cause death to yourself. Let me break it down to you. Okay. Not all people, for example, drink too much. Not all the people that drink too much are suicidal. So just because you see somebody drinking too much, you know, it's not because they're suicidal. Okay. So, however, there are many who drink that are suicidal and they don't have to drink too much. Okay. So, what role does the alcoholic drink have on a person who is suicidal? And this is just one example. There are many other motivating factors for suicidal thoughts, tendencies, and actions. Alcoholic drink, alcoholic beverage, alcohol ingested is just one motivating factor. Okay. Well, the alcoholic beverage is not causing the suicidal thought, tendency, or action. It's not causing it. Those have already been embedded into the suicidal person's mind, either through abuse, through heredity, okay, or a tragedy, okay. And there are others. I'm just listing three of them, okay, for the sake of time: abuse, hereditary, and tragedy. Those are what's already embedded in your mind. All the alcohol does is simply gives this person courage to proceed with a thought, tendency, or action. Okay? Like I said, it's not the only motivating factor. I mean, it's the motivating factor, but it's not the cause of you thinking those things or doing it. Just motivates you. So it's like liquid courage. That's what they call it. Okay. But um Although thoughts are much harder to detect, pay attention to the words that come out of a person's mouth, their tone. The tone is not always going to match their words. Their words might sound like, I want to die, but the tone will sound like this. "Oh, I just want to die." They might laugh, play it off, but the fact of the matter is that the person did say they want to die. Okay, and it could be dressed up all kind of different ways. It could be said a whole bunch of different ways. But the fact of the matter is they did say they want to die. Okay? Oh, okay, so one way to keep a thought from becoming an action is to play your thought all the way through. So, what you'll do is take the thought and visualize the action. You can write it out verbatim or even draw it out. I started out by telling my counselor while I was being rehabbed exactly what I intended to do. I straight up just told her what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. And I didn't hold anything back. I am not ashamed of being suicidal. I'm not ashamed of living with suicide. I will tell on it and tell it exactly how I see it, how I envision it. The object of this exercise is to literally see yourself in all of the gory details, blood, broken bones, and all, even your death, without actually going through it. This is what the exercise is for, so you can see it without actually having done it. Visualizing your death, you'll want to think of the people you leave behind. Picture yourself on the evening news and picture those people who've met your acquaintance and point to the television in horror and telling others how they just saw you or spoken to you earlier that day. See the look in your children's face, the tears in the eyes of your nieces and nephews, sisters or brothers as they lay claim that you were their favorite. Those bills you were trying to escape. Watch as your loved ones scramble to pay those bills and provide a proper burial. And for those who have life insurance, don't think for a second that your loved ones will see any of that money. Suicide does not count toward a benefit. On the other hand, think how it would be if you don't succeed in your suicide. Will you be permanently paralyzed? How will rehabilitation look? How will you look? How will you feel? You think you were lonely then? How are you now? You might get attention. I'm not going to lie. You might get all the attention you want, but at what expense? Your loved ones scrambling to take care of you, to brush your teeth for you, wash your back for you, all of that. Think about it. So, for help for yourself or somebody else, please contact the United States Suicide Prevention Hotline. The National Suicide Hotline is 800-273-8255. And for international suicide hotline numbers, you can visit online at www.opencounseling.com. That's OPENCOUNSELING.com. It is so important that we get help whenever, wherever, however. Thank you. This has been a message from Katie Marie, CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Time Lifestyle Management System. We had an episode. I'm sure y'all have had episodes before this video. I'm terribly sorry. But when it hits home, it hits home. And that's when I find it's my duty to do something and say something about it. Because I am living with suicide. I am living with suicide. I'm living with suicidal thoughts, tendencies, and actions. So please get help today. Get help today. Thank you.